Every 24 hours, this floating city pays thousands of people, flies multi-million-dollar jets, makes its own power and water, and keeps 100,000 tons of steel mission-ready. Add it up, and you get a number that shocks most people. Roughly $6.5 million per day. Where does that money actually go? Before we break down the numbers, comment "carrier cost" if you value the people behind the steel, and subscribe for more real stories from life at sea. Aboard a modern United States aircraft carrier, nearly 5,000 people wake up, stand watch, and keep the ship running around the clock. People draw paychecks that reflect not just rank, but the weight of responsibility at sea. The average sailor earns between $230 and $320 per day when you add base pay, deployment bonuses, healthcare, retirement, and the cost of training. Multiply that by a full crew of roughly 5,000 on deployment, and payroll alone totals between $1.2 million and $2 million every single day. Each role comes with its own demands. Reactor operators train for years before taking the controls. Their shifts run from 6 to 12 hours while they monitor the nuclear systems that provide the ship with power. A watchstander might finish a shift at sunrise, knowing the next team is already gearing up below decks. Because those long shifts require careful staffing, fatigue management appears in the budget as extra training time, premium pay, and medical support. This is not just about paychecks. Reliability is budgeted. The Navy plans for every position to be filled and every watch to be covered at any hour. Medical care, family support, ongoing training, and readiness programs are included in daily personnel costs. Contractors and civilian specialists fill a handful of technical roles and often earn several $100s per day themselves. Those costs reduce operational risk, and they also push the daily bill higher. The human element is the largest expense, and it cannot be trimmed without risk. People are the systems that keep the steel alive. For a crew of roughly 5,000, small cuts in staffing or training could leave dozens of watches uncovered. Every dollar spent on crew is a safeguard against the unpredictable, and it is a guarantee that the ship can meet whatever comes next. A carrier's price tag climbs fastest when jets are flying. On a routine day, the air wing might launch 120 to 150 sorties, each one a carefully choreographed burst of activity across 4.5 acres of flight deck. Ramp up the surge tempo, and the count can hit 180 or even 220 sorties in 24 hours. Every extra launch means more jet fuel, more spare parts, and more hands on deck. JP-5 aviation fuel, the lifeblood for these operations, does not come cheap. Delivered at sea, each gallon can cost between $8 and $15, depending on how far the supply ship has traveled and how contested the region is. With a busy air wing, a carrier can burn through over 100,000 gallons of JP-5 in a single day. That translates to a fuel bill that often crosses $1 million before sunrise. The expense does not stop at fuel. Each FA-18 Super Hornet racks up nearly $10,000 for every hour in the air. The newer F-35C pushes that figure even higher, over $13,000 per flight hour. Multiply those rates by hundreds of flight hours per day, and the aviation bucket alone can swing from $1 million to $2.5 million per day, sometimes more during high-tempo operations. Maintenance teams hustle to keep pace, swapping landing gear tires, refueling hoses, and electronic modules. For the flight deck maintainer, every sortie is another test of skill and speed. A single missed inspection can ground a jet or delay an entire launch cycle. The tempo sets the price. On days when the deck is humming, The cost of keeping jets in the air can rival the payroll for the entire ship. A carrier's steel hull is more than just armor. It is a living structure that demands constant attention. Every day, teams of maintainers patrol the decks and machinery spaces, searching for early signs of corrosion or wear. A simple gasket swapped for $20 during routine checks can prevent a chain reaction that ends in six-figure repairs. Skipping a minor fix is not an option at sea. There is no safe harbor for breakdowns. The annual maintenance bill for a Nimitz-class carrier runs close to $726 million, and hundreds of daily actions are logged, from recalibrating radar to inspecting catapults and arresting gear. Beneath the decks, the nuclear reactor team works in shifts, their vigilance never lapsing. Over 100 specialists monitor systems that power everything on board, from lights and radar to elevators and the desalination plants that turn seawater into 400,000 gallons of fresh water each day. These reactors do not burn marine fuel for the ship itself, but they are not free to run. Each part and each hour of technical labor adds to the daily operating total. A reactor technician logbook often records dozens of checks per shift, including temperatures, pressures, and coolant chemistry, all to keep the plant stable and the city above humming. Utilities crews handle a city's worth of wiring, plumbing, and air conditioning, keeping more than 3,000 compartments livable. Waste is processed and sanitized on board, and every system, from water fountains to the communications array, depends on preventive work and a full roster of skilled staff. The cost of this vigilance is high, but the price of neglect is far steeper. On a carrier, maintenance and utilities are the backbone that keeps the mission possible. At 4:30 in the morning, the galley comes alive. Ovens heat up. Trays pile high, and a small team of culinary specialists gets ready to serve breakfast to thousands. Each day, this crew prepares between 14,000 and 18,000 meals: eggs, oatmeal, pancakes, and midnight rations for the night watch. The process never stops. Every meal is planned weeks ahead, and every ingredient is tracked from storage deep below decks. A supply officer checks inventory, knowing that a missing pallet of flour or a late shipment of eggs can ripple across the entire ship. The journey of a single egg starts far from the carrier. It is bought by the Defense Logistics Agency, shipped by truck to a naval depot, loaded onto a supply ship, and finally transferred at sea. Each handoff, from 5 to 8 separate touchpoints, adds both cost and risk. The last leg is the most demanding. Underway replenishment, refueling, and resupply at sea requires a supply ship to match speed and course with the carrier. Over 6 to 10 hours, up to 2 billion gallons of jet fuel and tons of food move between ships by cable and hose. On deck, more than 60 sailors move in a practiced rhythm, securing lines and guiding pallets. Overtime pay is routine, especially when the seas are rough or the schedule is tight. Port visits bring a different set of bills. Docking in a foreign port can run from $50,000 to $250,000 per day, covering tugs, pilots, pier rental, and local services. Whether at sea or ashore, feeding and resupplying a carrier is a global relay, one that keeps every sailor and every piece of steel ready for the next day's demands. A warning. Klaxon cuts through the noise as a drill crew scrambles to their stations. In minutes, they are suiting up, sealing hatches, and running through every step as if the fire or flood were real. Each drill costs the Navy $3,000, mostly in crew time, and a handful of expendables like fire suppressant and batteries. But skipping even one could mean disaster. A single unchecked fire or a missed damage control step can spiral into hundreds of thousands of dollars, or even millions of dollars, in repairs and lost days at sea. On carriers, drills are not just tradition, they are insurance. For the sailors running hoses and checking gear, every practice run is a chance to catch a mistake before it turns into a crisis. The payoff is clear. A few $1,000s spent today can avert a six-figure loss tomorrow, keeping the mission and everyone aboard safe. Inside the shipyard, a manager stands beside the dry dock, watching a crew install a new radar suite, one of several modernization packages the Navy schedules every few years. These packages often range from $50 million to $150 million, and they include advanced electronics, new software, and the latest communications gear. Spread over a carrier's 50-year life, each upgrade is a hedge against obsolescence and a response to new threats. But the cost is never just about hardware. Weather, global tensions, and the ship's maintenance phase all sway the daily bill. Every lever pulled in the yard sends a ripple into the operating budget, reminding everyone that future-proofing a carrier is a moving target, not a fixed expense. Right now, every dollar spent at sea funds both deterrence and possibility. The true cost is not just steel and fuel, it is the unbroken chain of people, training, and readiness. In a volatile world, that investment shapes who answers the call when the unexpected happens. Thanks for watching.